Okay, thank you, Rob. That's good to know. All right, no problem. We'll walk through what Test Suite is. Matthew, I know Rongdit's been attending some of the sessions earlier, so you might be familiar with what UiPath uh, is and what you can do with the studio and build bots and things like that. Matthew, would you like an introduction to RPA, or are you already familiar with it? Okay, sure, not a problem. Uh, all right, I'll skip the introduction to UiPath. You probably might already be aware what you can do with the studio. Basically, build automations. You can record all the steps or individually drag and drop activities into Studio and configure the properties within the canvas and build a nice workflow. You can do business automation. Uh, Now, because you can actually use these bots to scrape data from screens, from websites, from Windows applications, thin clients, thick clients, customers have been asking, can we actually also use this to do regression testing or user acceptance testing, UAT, any other type of data-driven or behavior-driven testing? And that's when UiPath started thinking of what test concepts it could actually leverage on, and then created UiPath Test Suite to bring the time to value to really low levels if compared to other products out in the market, such as Tricentis or any um, automation product that's out there in the market. So the agenda for today is a simple introduction to what UiPath Test Suite is, then give you a demo of Test Suite, and then if you have any questions, happy to field those questions. Uh, just to introduce myself, I'm a technical consultant in the pre-sales department of UiPath. I basically help customers with demos, product walkthroughs, use cases, proof of concepts, and field any questions in regards to the bill of materials or licensing requirements from customers. And I've been with UiPath for about a year, but I've been working on their products in the past 5.5 years, and I'm really happy to see how it has matured into end-to-end automation platform. In the last 18 months, we have added a myriad of features and about 18 products to our suite. I'm happy to walk through those products in different sessions. I occasionally give sessions on the tools that I gain expertise on as I uh, uh, go through this journey. And today I'm here to give you a simple introduction to your part test suite. This is just naming and shaming our competition. So UiPath's been the market leader for the past 4 years. The slide is from 2021, but even if you look at 2022, I think Everest and Forrester have already released, even Gartner has released their reports, and UiPath is in the top quadrant for all of these consecutive years. Now, when it comes to testing, we have launched UiPath Test Suite somewhere in between 2020 and 2021. And straight out when we debuted UiPath Test Suite, IDC did an analysis of all the test products that were out in the market. And we are happy to state that we were in the leaders quadrant. And also in terms of strategy, we are the farthest. So um, because we have entered late, we know what the customers are asking for, what business organizations need in terms of having a good tool or a product to manage their testing requirements. And that's why we've been able to incorporate all of those features into Test Suite, which I'll walk through shortly. This slide is maybe not very relevant, but just to give you some background, earlier in the 1970s and 1990s, it was all script-based, used to write some scripts and execute them. Then came a scriptless execution type of, you'd use some integrated development environments to drag and drop, where you still needed to have some kind of domain knowledge to be able to do that, but with the recent advancements, you can basically use tools to do what you're doing, and it will be able to emulate a human action, and thus you can leverage that same technology to do application testing as well. Here are some metrics as to why you would need any test automation in an organization when you can actually perform all those tests manually. Reasons being a lot of these tests take a lot of time, and when you have to, uh, let's say, perform regression testing, or when you're releasing new features, you want to make sure that your existing application and the features in it are not broken, they are all working, and you want the turnaround time to test that to be really low. So that's where the bots can help achieve that uh, uh, benefit of having less time to do more work. So here are the components of the UiPath test suite. It's primarily 4 components. You might be familiar with Studio. We can use the same interface that you're already familiar with to build test cases as well. You can also convert a business workflow automation that you have built using Studio into a test case by simply right-clicking on it and converting it into a test case. Um, if you're familiar with behavior-driven development and the recent, what we say, agile methodologies, then you might be familiar with these constructs of given a particular assumption or a statement, when you perform something, then you expect something to happen. So we have pre-built templates within Studio that follow the same constructs. I will show you that on Studio as well. Using that, you can actually specify, let's say, when given that I'm logged in into a particular banking application, if I apply for a loan, will it be approved or not? So you can run that as a test case, and we'll see how we can have multiple verification steps within that test case. And if any of those verification steps fail, what happens to the end result of that execution? Now, to build all these test cases, you would need Studio, but you need to publish it to some place and then have it run somewhere else. Orchestrator is what you would use to distribute all of your test cases that different maybe developers or testers will create. And then you'll have test robots, which are nothing but unattended robots, but specifically built for running test cases, and they are 5 times cheaper than unattended robots. So that's primarily because you have several test cases as part of regressions, and you need these bots to execute them. So it makes more of a business case to have the price of test robots fairly easy to consume. So you'll use Orchestrator to basically manage those robots as well as distribute the tests into those robots and then execute them. And once those are all executed, you can review the results within Test Manager. Now, Test Manager is akin to what you would be using as an ALM tool, where you're managing the software test lifecycle, such as mapping, test cases and test sets to requirements, associating any bugs that you have to those requirements and things like that. What can you do with this complete test suite is you can do manual testing, automate the manual testing. You can do RPA testing as well. If you have built some bots, you want to test them before you deploy to production, you can use the test bots to do that as well. UiPath used to have non-production robot license, which it still provides, but you could use test robots to do the same as well and use it for application testing. Now, here are all the other tasks that you could do using UiPath Test Suite. I wouldn't read out each of those, but you can see that we have version control. We integrate with DevOps. If you have an Azure pipeline, or you have any Jenkins or any other tool to automate your running of tests whenever there's a deployment or a code release, you could use UiPath Test Suite to also configure execution of test cases whenever there's a new deployment. So thus supporting any DevOps initiatives within your organization. Here are some of the products or tools that we can use while you're testing. So it's agnostic to any application that you might be using. It doesn't have any tight integration with a specific product technology. So from day one, you can basically use UiPath Test Suite to run your test cases regardless of applications that you're using. So this further tells you what you can integrate with. Here are just some examples. It's nowhere restricted to the list that you see on the slide. It's now Jenkins and Azure pipelines have become mature products in managing DevOps and CI, continuous integration and continuous deployment type of a workflow that you might have set up. We integrate very well with those. You might already be using Postman or APM or any of these other tools to do API testing or database testing. We can also use UiPath bots to do those testing as well and schedule them to run when some change happens. And then we can report back on how those tests, whether they passed or failed, and do all the reporting and connect to any of your software development lifecycle management tools or software test lifecycle management tools. For example, you can create a ticket in ServiceNow for a development team if a particular test case fails. Um, SAP is a very widely used ERP platform. We are SAP certified, and you can use UiPath Test Suite to even test migrations from older versions of SAP to more modern releases such as SAP for HANA. And this doesn't just apply to SAP, but any other proprietary technology that a lot of ERP and CRM systems use today. Uh, what what else are we doing going forward is we want to be able to use this to basically even give you let you use your mobiles to run these test cases. Uh, let We are investing in finding or discovering how we can create test cases from your existing how the applications work. So that's our focus for now, as we have already proven that you can use your test suite to basically run any test automation program. Here's a list, or here are some of the logos that you may be familiar or may not be familiar with that are using UiPath Test Suite successfully to run test automation programs within their organizations. Some of them are large customers, some of them small. It really doesn't matter. As you will see in the next 15-20 minutes, how easy it is to create a test case and run it. I won't deep dive into any of these use cases. There are plenty that's listed on our website and on YouTube as well. I do highly encourage you to go to the test suite playlist for you to know how the tool works and how you can use it. I will post a link to that playlist on this chat. Feel free to bookmark it and visit it later. Any questions so far before I give a live demonstration of how you can create a test case and run it? Okay, no questions. That's good and bad. If you don't have questions, either you're following it and you know everything that I've said, or you're not following it at all. I hope it's the former. So, okay, so here's Path Studio. Now, thank you, Matthew. That gives me some reassurance that I'm able to deliver on your Path Test Suite's demo. So here's your Path Test Suite, Studio, and what I'm trying to do is I want to create a test project. So you have several templates that UiPath offers for different types of use cases. For example, you can have one for long-running workflows, one for document understanding, or a regular business flow. So if you look for test templates, you have one for SAP testing, you have one for regular testing as well. You have a template for mobile testing projects. So using Test Suite, you can actually test mobile apps, do API testing, do database testing, and we can also provide you with the bill of materials that's required to run a specific type of a use case. Now let me see if I can find that slide to show you, or maybe after the demo I will. Let's pick a normal uh, test case template. I don't want a mobile testing project. Or let me even start off with a simple process. Let's say I forgot to choose a test template, and what I'm just familiar with creating a blank process, a normal process. I'll just go to start and create a normal. So here it is, the test automation. So you could use this test automation project and it will give you the templates. I will show you both. If I select a test automation, it just gives me, ask me for a name, just accept the defaults in the interest of time. What that does is in the background, it's installing the packages that are necessary to run tests. What I mean by that is you will have a list of activities specific to testing. We'll quickly see what those are. There aren't many, so you don't have to really remember much. While that's loading, I'll answer Rob's question. Can this be done only in Enterprise Edition or will it work in Community as well? I am not entirely sure at the moment. Let me bring that up for you, and we'll see. Okay, this is not the right link. Mm, Okay, I probably need to launch a new browser because I'll be already logged into the UiPath platform, so it will not give me those options. Just give me 1 second. Done. Yes, a new browser. Uh, Maybe this will. Okay. All right. So what comes in the community edition, you do not get access to test manager. However, since you can download a community edition of Studio, you should still be able to create test cases. However, you will have to run them from Studio itself and not. Uh, you can publish them to Orchestrator as well. You wouldn't be able to use Test Manager. I'll describe what Test Manager is and what you can do within Test Manager. That's not available in Community, I guess. Not I guess, I mean, that's not available in Community, but basically you can create a test case, publish it to Orchestrator and run the test. If you wanted to map it to requirements or review the results, that's where you will need the test manager, and I'll quickly show you that in a couple of minutes. Uh, Coming back to the studio, so this is my test project. What I can see is there's a test case created, and if you can notice, the icon is it somewhat tells me that this is disabled. And this is a blank test case. Now, if I were to create a new file, I have an option to create a test case. And let's say I try and create a test case from that menu. You can see you can specify the name. You can specify a particular template, whether it's an empty test case or a behavior-driven development or anything else that you might create as well. Let's take a behavior-driven development test case. Let's see what it has. Before I click on create, I just want to also show that you can map a test case to look at test data. In this instance, let me say I have a file. Now here you can see you can specify UiPath's data service, a test data queue, which is like a queue of all the items that you may want to process. So that could become your list of test data that you want to run against with all the boundary values and edge cases specified. You can specify existing data if it already exists in the project, or you can choose a file. And that file could be a CSV or an Excel file. Let me see if I have any. I'll pick something. So when I do that, it asks me which particular sheet has the data that I want. And then it will allow you to choose rows and columns from that as well. Maybe this file doesn't have the right data. I'll go and pick something else. Let's say I pick this. Okay, that's also not good. That's empty. My bad, I don't have good data. Oh, here it is. So uh, if I import a particular file, then I'm able to even choose which particular rows to include as part of this specific testing or this specific project or not. And then you can create that, and then you have something called as a test explorer, where you can actually see what your test data that you have imported as well. Now, since I have chosen behavior-driven development, here are the sequences. Given a particular statement or given a set of conditions, when I try and perform certain things, then I expect something to happen. If that happens, then it's a passed, otherwise it's failed. Now let's look at what other things that test project template will give us. Now, if I go to manage packages, typically you would see only system activities and UI automation activities in addition to something else. But this testing activities is what gets added as part of this template. And that's the only difference really between a test automation template and a business workflow template. Now, if I were to create a normal process and I wanted to add test cases later, all I had to do, I would do is go to manage packages, look for UiPath testing activities in all packages, search for it, and install it. Uh, on installing, what it gives me is these particular activities under the testing category. So here, if it has 3 subcategories in this, I can use some of these functions to generate a random number. You oftentimes have to do this while you're testing your applications or any specific validations. So you could use any of these. If you have the data of your own that's not in a file, but you have used a test queue, your paths test data queues, you have activities to access that test data as well. Queues are nothing but first in, first out type of setup where you could have use cases where, let's say, you're processing transactions and you don't have control over the input and the way at the time and the way they would flow. So you could configure this in real time when you have put these test cases and publish them to production to look at a particular transaction as it arrives, create a queue item for it, and then process each queue item when the bot is available to run those tests. Now let's look at verification. These are the only, oh, they have added a fourth one. As far as I knew, there were only 3. They've added a fourth one, verify range, which is new. But these are the only 4 conditions that you really need to remember to build your test automations. Even if you don't, there's extensive documentation available and examples as to how you would use it. And we'll look at a couple of them right now. Let's look at verify expression. What it says is, here's, I can specify a particular expression which would be as simple as 1 plus 1 equals 2, which I know is correct. Uh, you could even use a variable from the ones that you have defined to be able to do this. Let's try and run this particular test case. So I've completed the execution. The output is the verification has passed. I know 1 plus 1 is 2. Now, if I were to change this to something else, obviously that would fail for me. And I can add multiple verification steps to this. Now, this was very, very simple just to demonstrate what you would do in a verification step. Now, I could make this as complex as I would want. For example, I could launch uh, let's say a Windows application. Let me see if I have access to one. Here's one Windows application, and let's say my test cases, I key in some, given that I have launched this particular application, what I really want to do is maybe input some data. I can either use type into, or I can just use this record over here and record all my steps, which I'll try and do now. That's recording. I go about doing my regular stuff, which is entering information into these boxes. Let's say, as my day-to-day job, I need to just enter information and verify. Maybe I'll skip that. So I'm entering 10 and 5, and maybe I'll also enter this because the value is not different. Okay, so given this input data, the deposit needs should be 15. Let's capture that as well. So that's my target, and I save it. Okay, so the capture put this whole block outside my given when and then block. What I'm going to do is just drag it and put it inside when. These are all sequences. You can move them around. You can reuse them. You can even extract them as a separate workflow, thus making it even more modular. So, for example, if you have a test case which needs, which requires you to log in into a specific application, then you can reuse that to log in, reuse that component for multiple test cases where you have to frequently log in into that application. Now I have captured all of this, and I'm even, so this performed a click activity. I do not want a click activity. I actually want to get that text from that screen. So I'll use a get text activity instead. I indicate on that app and I specify where it is. Confirm. Now I could add this into a variable. I'm just using a shortcut, but you could just click this and say use variable and either use one of them that's already there or create a new one. And let's say total retrieved. Now that's set to a variable. It's what I can do in a verify expression with operator. This is another activity within the verify step. Uh, I can specify whether it's greater than, equal to, or less than, and say if my value that I had captured in the previous step Okay, now I'm looking for this variable that I had created, but I can't really find it. Now, the reason being this is inside the scope of this when, and my verification is outside it. So all I need to do is go back to that, change the scope of this variable, which I can from here in the variables panel. I change that to, let's say, the complete test case, the parent activity. Then I should be able to retrieve that now. And there I can see. So as I type in, it should show me as well, or I can do a control space and it will give me the list of variables that are in the scope of this activity. So what I'm choosing is total retrieved equals whatever value I captured. That was $15. That's now in this instance, it's all string variables. You could all use string manipulation or convert these types into numbers and then do a comparison of numbers. Now, if you look, I can just not type that because it will recognize that as, try and recognize that as a variable. If I were to specify string, I need to enclose it in double quotes. That should soon disappear. So I have two test cases here. One which says total retrieved. Let me just disable this one for now. There you go. And let's run this. I'll cancel this so that this is all cleared out. I'm running my file. I hope you all are following this. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. So the bot is entering 10, 5, 40, and it's going to grab that 15 as well. And in the end, it's going to output saying verification passed. The expression value was equal to 15. Now, if I were to change any of this, let's say I change this 20, I don't know if it's really going to affect the total. Hopefully it will. Let me run it and see. It's trying to enter some values again. Now the total deposit is 55 and not 15, and you can see that the verification failed because I was expecting $15 and it's 55 now. So that's from the studio. Now, if you were to actually run this in production, you would want to publish this as a test case, specify an input source of data where it will probably look at a structured Excel file or database or any other way of grabbing that data, entering it into launching this application and entering it into this application and getting the total deposit every time and doing those validations. So to do that, you could publish this. When you publish, you can see that this project has no publishable test cases. What it means is I have built this test case on Studio, but I have not marked this as publishable. This is just to put a safeguard or a gate check to ensure that you're not accidentally publishing test cases that are still developing. You could have multiple test cases within this project. Some of them might have already been verified by you saying the test case works, and some you might be in the process of building. So that's the reason why this feature is available. So let's put this as publishable. And as long as the project has at least one test case that can be published, you can publish the uh, project that you're building. Then it will ask you to which feed you want to publish. Currently, I am connected to a different version of Orchestrator where I don't want to publish this, but essentially what it would look like is you would have a workspace uh, and you would the test cases that you would build would come and be published in the test cases tab. So this is where you'll see the test cases. You could execute it from here. Uh, Once you have test robots, licensed test robots, and accounts that uh, have access to that particular robot, you can execute these test cases and you'll get an outcome or a result. Let me see if I can connect to that. I would do this in the UiPath Assistant where, okay, service URL is okay. I want to go to, oops. So what I've just done is I've logged out of one particular cloud instance and logged back into the instance which has test manager and where I can publish test cases. Um, so I should be able to now go to Studio and pick that specific workspace where I want to publish, and I can publish this test case. I want to name it as, let's say, grand total verification. Click OK. Sorry. And publish this. I'll leave it as test project 5. So this was the workspace to which I published. If you closely see the workspace that's selected in Studio, you can see this test suite workspace. I should see test automation project 5 or the test case name in this workspace. If I go to testing, please be mindful that if you build a particular automation, that generally is a package that gets published to your tenant. In tenant, you have packages, and that's where all your regular business workflow packages are deployed along with the test packages as well. But when you come to creating a particular process within a folder, let's say over here, if I go to automations, I will not be seeing those specific process because those are marked as a test automation project. I can't run them basically. So these are specific to testing, and any test cases that you publish will be available for you. So here's the grand total verification step that I just published. Now you can run this as well. I would choose my machine that I just set up. It should give me, it's not giving me. Let's see if that runs or not. I'm not sure if it will execute. Okay, I just specified one test case to be executed, but over here I can see it wants to execute this 6 times. The reason being, when I was creating this particular test case, I had, for demonstration purpose, chosen a file as my test data. So it will always assume that I'm trying to read from that file and run this test case for each of those individual test data. I know they are in pending because my this is not connected properly. Okay, but you get the idea. So basically, it's going to just run the same test case that you saw when I ran it in Studio and give the outcome right in this test execution, whether it's a pass or fail or what happened to it. I can look at its details. I can see what happened when it will also take a screenshot if the test case has failed. I really wish I could demonstrate that to you if my robot connected properly. I did not see it working. You can create multiple, you can group multiple test cases into a test set and run that specific test set and then measure the outcomes. Now, if you look at this, this is just Orchestrator, and in Orchestrator, you're only in the testing tab. Now, if you were to procure the license for a test manager, what that allows you to do is look at all of your requirements, map, you can create multiple projects here. Let's pick a particular project. It will have a nice dashboard giving you what your execution looks like for the past sprint or a week or whatever you configure. What's the automation rate, your total test coverage, any results during that week. You can individually create new requirements and map test cases. If you don't have a software development lifecycle tool or a test lifecycle tool, you're not using any of them currently, you can use Test Manager to create those requirements and map test cases to those requirements as well as defects. All your test cases that have been published can be imported into this. You can create some for manual testing as well. Now, if you look at a test case, you can map it to a particular, link it to an automation that you just automated. Let's say I want to link it to, yeah, nothing has been added, but basically I could, within the studio, I can connect this to Test Manager, and then I should be able to map a particular requirement to a particular test case. Let's say I'll do that. Then that way you're mapping the automations that you have built to the test cases over here. Refresh. I still have not mapped it. This is connected. I do need to give the project, which is UBPT, I guess. Yep, that's the project. I know this is a lot of steps. You'll obviously not remember all of this. Feel free to go through the documentation and published YouTube channel on this. And there are also lots of free training courses available on our academy, and you should be able to get up to speed based on those courses. They have several exercises for you to do. While you may not be able to access Test Manager, you will still be able to create test cases within Studio using Community Edition, and that should be sufficient enough for you to get started to create test automation. And then once once you cross that bridge, you're past that stage, you can contact any of our sales reps to get an understanding of the pricing of Test Manager and how you can leverage this particular test suite. Um, in the test results, you will see pass or fail. You can also export this into an Excel and use that for any reporting purpose or import it into a different tool to create dashboards and graphs and charts like that. You can also integrate with any of the, let's say you're using Jira to track your use cases. You could create a bug and or create an issue in Jira or create a ticket in ServiceNow for a team and map it to the requirement within Jira if that's what you're doing. You can connect to DevOps or to automatically run these tests when there's a code deployment as well. So in a nutshell, that's what Test Manager gives you. Sincere apologies, I couldn't get the robot to work to demonstrate when you run a test case from here, how it actually runs and what you would see as a result. But I'm sure that's definitely available in one of these videos in the test suite playlist from UiPath. Feel free to browse through those videos. Uh, what else? Yeah, I think that's basically what I wanted to demonstrate today. Any questions or any feedback? If you have no questions as to what you liked about the session, what you wanted to see, what you didn't like. Yes, we, as long as GitLab provides, I think we do. GitLab provides an API. I should have a slide. that shows you GitLab. It's not this slide, but let's say GitLab integration with UiPath. You should find plenty of information on that. Yeah. So this is official documentation from UiPath, docs.uipath.com, and you'll see all the published activities that enable you to perform certain activities within Git. I'll just wait for that to load. So here's our official post on UiPath forums. What it says, there's a demo video of it as well. I'll probably send a link of that to you, which shows you how you could. That's an ad. There's a script repository. I'll actually post this link as well on the chat for you. You can go through that. You're welcome. Any other questions? I'm happy to wait for a couple of minutes if you have any questions. Otherwise, consider this as the end of the session. Feel free to explore yourselves, reach out to us if you have any questions. Go through the material that's available on our website, on docs, visit Academy. There are plenty of courses to use our tools. That's academy.uipath.com. And there are all these courses are on demand and for free. So do leverage them for your benefit. Um, I also wanted to show automation of web application, but it would be very similar, where you can use the recording capability to record, or if you're familiar with activities in the panel, you can use drag and drop those activities and basically look at the color of a button, the message that a web application might show, a success message, for example, or an error message or a validation step. So you could automate those test cases where you're expecting a validation to fire for multiple fields within a form or on a page. And when that doesn't happen, you fail the test case and notify the developer who's responsible to. And you can get all of that information from uh, who the task is created for or who the requirement is mapped to within Jira or any other tool that you use. So the bots can automatically go and get that information, create a bug, and assign it to them as well. It takes away, or it rather takes away all the mundane and trivial tasks that you'd have to do when you're testing applications. You could use this as a really good tool to automate instead of using, say, Selenium or some other technology to write lots of code and maintain that as well. It's very simple. Thank you for joining this session. Thank you for your time, and hope you were able to get something out of this, and it has motivated you to explore more. Feel free to reach out if you have any doubts.